Happy Thursday, folks. New background. So very Zen-like.
All my backgrounds are real. Photos I've taken of real things that mean something to me, even though they're virtual.
I thought you were joking. You're actually in a.
This is up the street from us. A few years ago, my husband and I were walking the dog, and it was just one of those quintessential days. I thought I'd grab it and throw it up. It's better than staring at the furniture in the dining room, I think.
It's like a background you'd see on Windows.
On where?
Windows. It's very pretty.
Oh, well, thank you. It's mine. It's my photograph.
Copyrighted.
Whatever.
I thought it was funny. I had to upload the last video to YouTube, and you know what it picked for a thumbnail?
My dog.
It's
Oh
you
yeah, it's you with
and
your
your
dog
dog.
right on YouTube.
Yep.
Oh, no. I forget these things are live. It's like, I just
I didn't
need
even
it to
pick it.
happen.
That's YouTube.
Oh my God. Now I'm embarrassed.
If it makes you feel better, there's one video we had and I was playing with a kitten and that ended up as the thumbnail while we were on break because apparently my mic was on. So don't be embarrassed because there's a whole 15 minutes somewhere of me playing with a newborn cat and acting like it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. So you're good.
I'm having trouble with my trackpad trying to unmute. I think that's awesome, Ariel. I love that. Oh, I got something on my shirt. Oh God. I'm gonna go crawl back under my rock, I think.
Now that we're all feeling a little more self-conscious.
Always. I mean, I may come off like I don't, but always. I think it's just a water spot. Does anyone care? Really?
Can't
I
see
mean,
it.
the things we think like everyone's looking at us and they're really absorbed with us. And it's like, no, we're all absorbed with ourselves. No one notices. Oh, well.
All right, we'll start at 5:35. What are you guys doing tomorrow?
Working on school.
We have career coaching at 6 with Laura tomorrow night.
Yep.
Okay. How's that going? What does that entail?
A lot less than it initially did because they realized we couldn't do all that and do these other things.
Oh,
It is very helpful though. Like we were supposed to apply for 100 jobs by the course of the end of and not necessarily apply and get a job offer, but just get that practice.
so that's where you've been doing the mock interviews.
That's part, yeah, that's like I think we probably would have done those anyway. But Laura's great.
How'd you guys feel about the mock interviews? Do you guys get nervous about them like I do when you go to interview?
mock interviews? Nah. How about you, ladies and gents?
Oh, did I just cut someone off? I'm sorry.
Speak, Latonia. We are waiting.
It must be my internet acting crazy again.
Oh, it's
Oh,
nuts now. It's probably the smoke in the air.
Yeah. I just came from one. I generally don't mind them. I feel like they're very helpful. I just came from one with Max. I didn't
Oh.
cry, folks. I made it through, and I made it through my coding challenge. But I clearly, I need to practice. So like I'm very grateful for the mock interviews because, can't replace it. That experience can't be replaced. So.
Yeah. And you never know what connection you might be making also in the, future practical. I mean, you may be landing a job that, so overall, it's been quite good. I've had different styles of interviewers. Some were chatty, which I like. The one I had the other day, I was between appointments and she had to pull by the side of the road, a very noisy road, to do my mock interview, which I frankly didn't appreciate. And I mean, she was all right. And she was really nice to me. She had some good suggestions. She said, oh, I'd hire you and all this stuff. But she was going by that job that, at Max's company and everything that we were supposed to follow. But it was a little too much role play. I mean, it didn't oh, well, thank you very much. That was very interesting that you shared. And it's like, just talk normal. I would not hire you, okay? Yeah, I got it out of my system. No, it wasn't that bad. It's just the other ones were better. Anybody else?
Have you all gone through a mock interview? Is everybody? Pabelia, you still have to do an interview?
I'm chicken.
What?
I am chicken.
Now's the time to get the chicken out because
I know, but it's
there
just
isn't a job at
this
stake.
interview, this particular mock interview. Any other interview, I'd be fine. But it's just this type of interview. I'm like, I don't know anything. That's what's in my mind. It's like, I don't know enough.
That's how I feel.
Oh,
You know what
no.
I would say, Miss Stacy? Start with Raymore and Flanagan. If you get the guy Ralph DeVito,
Okay.
his style is to do a culture type. And so he's basically gonna ask you about you.
I
And
gotta
you're
write that
awesome.
down.
So
And
like,
we
I would
know
start
lots of
with
people
him.
there.
Ralph DeVito. Thanks,
Yep.
Latonia.
I have some other friends there, and of course we have cohort grads there. Yep.
Caitlin, right? Caitlin, Joey. Well, Joey
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, and isn't there another? And the friend of ours, he's more in the design engineer quality kind of end. He used to work at
Okay.
Stickley.
Ah,
So it's a big enough place that like nobody knows anybody, kind of, unless you're in that. So he's not in the IT, but there's somebody else that used to work with my husband, was it, that went there? Actually, he was his boss for a while, and I just forgot his name. I'll think of it if it matters.
okay.
Oh shoot,
I know. I'm trying to get my nerve
Tim.
up.
Tim something. Now go search the database for Tim something, see what you find, okay? Hey, I think I'm going senior here. Tim,
I'm already there.
no, I mean in here.
Me too.
No, you and I are 39, let's remember that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish. Tim, I'll have to ask Eric and then let you know later. Or we could spend the whole class figuring this out, I suppose.
Yeah, take it away.
Okay.
No,
I'll write
come
down
on, you gotta
Tim.
be, no, I don't want to do that. I was reprimanded once about a disruptive class that I didn't realize I was speaking.
Well, Nathan know he wants to mush our brain some more. I don't know why he's trying to act like he's holding off on doing that.
Mhm.
My brain has been mushed before this program. My hope was that this program would unmush it.
Yeah, I'm trying to
It's only
find
gotten
exactly what each person's breaking point is. Just how much can we cram inside your head?
Well, I already broke. So this is like my answer to showing I can come back from breaking.
So
That's why I'm auditing, so I don't break.
let's go ahead and get started. How is everybody doing? How is the homework going? Did anybody get to the homework last night and go, I have no idea where to start?
I felt like that in class. I was just like, what am I doing? And then so I drafted some stuff out, and then I just kind of felt like I was going in the wrong direction. So I drafted it, and I decided I just needed to step away because I wanted to work on some other stuff. And so I haven't reapproached it yet. But
Anybody else?
I think testing is harder than it may have the reputation for being. To anticipate. I mean, if I tie my shoes, I expect my shoes to be tied. That's pretty easy. Unless I don't double time and the dog steps on one and it unties. So there's one of your cases right there, right? But as I try and anticipate those, I'm like, I don't know. And now I'm scared because if I'm responsible for testing and something isn't done thoroughly enough, we're going to end up with that kind of a scenario.
No, that shouldn't be a reason not to attempt testing.
Oh, no. But I mean, it's I think it's harder than, or I'm making it harder than it should be. I don't know.
Well, just in all fairness, we, like you're alluding to, we've gone from let's build something to a completely different paradigm. Not only are we building something, but we're also proving the correctness of what we've built. And that's a completely different skill than just writing the code, building the application. So yeah, this should, I didn't intend for it to be such a jarring week, but it's going to be jarring. This is a completely different kind of skill that you're learning. So I want to ask, for the people that are feeling like they don't know where to start with the homework or they need to step away. We went through yesterday an example. What can I do for you before we get into the stuff for today? What can I do for you to help make you feel more comfortable with it, feel like you're more confident?
I'll jump in just because I have a hard time not talking. Oh, Ariel, go ahead.
Sorry, thanks. No, I was just gonna say, for me, it was not the code per se. It was actually like coming up with rules to test. Like, for example, the sales tax. Like, I know I can do .map or I can go from there, but it was, okay, we did sales tax. I got it to pass. Now what the heck am I supposed to do for 2 more times? Like, that was my thing. Like, because if you're doing like, look, we looked at exemption yesterday, but like there's state level, some states don't do it. There's no database to go off of.
Yep.
So I overcomplicated it doing it that way. That was my concern. I'm sorry, go ahead, LaTonya.
No, I agree. I think sometimes I overcomplicate it because I'll just sit there and just try to figure out what should I be doing? What's the best way to do this? As opposed to you can just jump in because it's so flexible. You can just jump in, and then you wanted us to do different scenarios anyway. But I know for me it helps just to be able to see it, even if you just do one run through and I can see it. Like I kind of was struggling with adding in multiple things that we were executing from that same file, not the test file, the other file. So that was one of the things I was kind of like, oh, it'd be nice if I had another example of how you double these in together, so I can keep the code straight and stuff. Like even when Carolyn asked, like, so I think it was Carolyn, when you don't use describe, what does this look like? And she put it in the chat. And so it made a lot of sense when she put it in, but then when you showed us, like, that's not what it was, right? So it's not always clear cut, even though it seems like it should be. It's just not, just because my brain is just too new to trying to think in a coding way.
Sure. Okay, let's jump in. I'm going to do a little bit of, I'm not going to outright solve the homework, but I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about it. Ariel, as far as the test cases, there's really not a whole lot. You're right. Unless you involve databases, different states, different sales taxes. Unless you start to pull in other pieces, there's really not a whole lot to test with that function. You're just passing in a sales tax, and that sales tax can be, any number under the sun. So I just want to encourage folks, don't feel like you need to get to 3 tests or 5 tests. In fact, I could only think of a couple tests off the bat. My goal is just for you guys to set up a test, prove that you know how Jest works, how Jest runs, and get your A test to pass. And then just think about, are there other tests that you might want to add? Okay. On the assignment in Google Classroom, I haven't put anything on there about I want you to get 3 tests or I want you to write 5 tests for this. I really just want you to understand how to write the test for sales tax and prove sales tax works. And then after that, yeah, if you want to noodle on it and think about different possible inputs, by all means. But don't feel like you need to achieve a certain number of tests. Just one. Let's set the criteria at 1 test to prove that the sales tax is implemented.
Carolyn's raising her hand and has a question.
Yeah, a couple things. It occurred to me too, with the internet, nothing actually exists anywhere physically anymore. Sales tax, would it even matter? Like, wouldn't it just be what that site assigns to sales tax? Or I'm trying to think, I haven't done a lot of online shopping lately, but I mean, maybe we don't even need to think about that now, especially just to test the case and to show that we understand how to do it.
Yeah, I don't want you guys considering other states. I don't want you diving off into, how could this function look at where the user is coming from and what their state is. I just want a second parameter that goes into the function that represents a sales tax, and then a test that proves that your function can accept a sales tax and spit out an adjusted number that has that sales tax in it.
I start thinking of scenarios and I get carried away. And I think if I haven't spun off to the scenario universe, I haven't done it sufficiently. So I'm the one that came up with like the discount for seniors and all that. And it's like, okay, let's keep this simple. All right. We're really not, it's not a real site. We're not really testing something. We're trying to learn how to do it. So chillax.
Yep.
Also, if you have any actual real world experiences that don't give away code that's proprietary or private, that would be helpful to us. I think I'm speaking for myself, but tests that you use on a specific thing, a little more concrete, like showing us what you did. And I don't know. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. In fact, I've got my work laptop right here if you guys want to see some Jest tests at my current company. But let's go ahead and let's jump into, if we have time at the end, I'll be more than happy to show you guys that. Let's go ahead and jump into the homework, and let me try to answer any questions that people might still have about that.
Latonia had a quick question. Can tests be proprietary?
My work one isn't, because the Jest test I wrote is very boring. The function would not be proprietary. There may be some code that, maybe the function name gives away the kind of technology that you're using. Maybe the way that you're combining things would give away something proprietary. Yeah, that could be you might give away trade secrets by doing that.
In general, at smaller companies, often it depends on a lot of things, but like often it's what's more important is the execution of an idea and not the idea of it of itself. What I mean by that is, like, ideas are worth one thing, but actually like building and implementing the idea is worth something else. And if someone is it's one thing to like see the code. It's another thing to actually like take that code, get it working in like a whole system with like a bunch of infrastructure around it. And a lot of the challenge of getting something to work like at a business is the latter case. So not to say that like code isn't proprietary, like there definitely are cases where that is, but it's, at least at all the companies I've worked for, there hasn't really been much of a focus on like, you can't show this code to anybody. It's more been like, yeah, I mean, you can show this code, it's fine. The more secret sauce of the company is like how all the code comes together, how all the services are integrated, and kind of value it brings to the customer. If that makes sense. And with the caveat that that depends on a lot, like you might sign something where that could change it, but like, at least in my experience, that's what it's been like.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the day 3 in the careers and code base. Also, everyone, make sure that you go in there and pull down again. The slides have been updated, and one of the examples was updated for today. So I'm in day 3. I'm going to go into the additional Jest example, where the homework was. Get rid of some stuff. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and start the test runner over here. So npm test. Which is was not running. Let's do that again. npm test. Oh, since last commit. There we go. So let me just make a new line in here. There we go. Is everybody able to get their tests to run on their computer? Pretty sure everybody was at that point yesterday. Okay. If you haven't been able to run your tests, just let me know, because we need to, for the homework, you need to be able to run these tests. So I think this was where I left off with you guys before we jumped into the sales tax. So the sales tax was an additional parameter being passed in to calculate total. So for the homework, what I wanted you to do is go ahead and create another it block to prove that the function could take something besides 0. So pass in some sort of sales tax and then expect that the total that is returned includes that sales tax. Should handle sales tax. And in order to do that, you would need to create some items in your test. I'm just going to go ahead and steal these two right here. So all of this adds up to $17 without the sales tax included. But if we calculate total with a sales tax of, let's say, sales tax of 10%, we would expect that the total that's returned is going to equal $17 plus what? 70 cents? No, $1.07. So it would be 17 plus $1.07. Any questions? Okay, then let's talk about the describe really quick. What does the describe do?
It kind of adds a title to your test.
Yeah, that's it. Let me drop this so the test. Okay, let me make this pass. We're going to expect total to equal total. There we go. That is a meaningless test. All right. Yeah, so like what was just said, Describe puts the word calculate total right there. And it's useful in the context of breaking up your tests. So let's pretend like there was another function inside the pricing file. Called, oops, let me make this a little bit bigger. Let's pretend like there's another function in this file called calculate discount. And we're going to do some fancy logic to offer folks a discount. So let's go back to the pricing test. Describe lets you break these up and put titles here. So if we wanted to write some tests for the calculate discount function, that doesn't really exist. We haven't written any code for it. This is just an example. But let's say we have calculate discount. We could put that in here, give this the title, calculate discount, start a block here, and then we could write some tests. So it should calculate a discount. Expect 1 to equal 1. So now if I hit save, over on the left, you'll see a block here for calculate discount. You'll see the same block for calculate total. All describe is it's a way for you to organize things. Now, if you didn't use describe, let's take out the describe. So now all of our functions in this file, they're all just its. So if we did this, you'd notice that all of the tests now run together. So it's not easy to spot what's doing what here. All your tests look like they belong to the same thing. They're all kind of lumped together. So describe is not magical. It's not doing anything to your tests, like changing how they're executing, or it's really not doing a whole lot. All it is a way for you to break up and add these descriptive titles in your test output. That's it. Any questions? Any other things that I should go over with the homework? And Ariel, I want to point out, because you're talking about the different kinds of tests we can write. There's really only two things you can change about this function without going and changing the definition of calculate total, without adding more functionality around here. So when you're thinking of test cases, think about how you can change this parameter and this parameter. If you think about the different inputs that can go into this function, that will help you to build out other tests, because you can change the number of items here. You can change the prices of the items here. You can change the sales tax. That's about it. To use that as a
So Ariel says, so go for changing params and not functions.
yes. Yep. Please don't change the calculate total arguments. Do add that sales tax argument, and do implement the code inside of calculate total to handle the sales tax argument. You can see it's grayed out on my computer because I'm not actually using that variable in this function, but do add the code for modifying the total. Meant the cases. Yeah, so what I hope you would do is, this function is just checking to see if it should handle sales tax. What it's really doing is it's handling multiple items and 10% sales tax. Now, if we wanted to test another scenario, like handling 200% sales tax, what we could do is just copy, paste, create another test case, update this. Oh, yeah, no, 2000. And then adjust the parameters in here to to make this test case match the description. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions about the homework? And what we covered so far in general? Yeah, by all means, copy and paste, repeat yourself. At this point, I'd much rather folks be copy and pasting parts of their test code and then changing the hard coded sales tax, changing the items. I'd much rather you do that than try to write a full-fledged program in here to sort of dry it up. So yes, Shah, please feel free to hard code. All right, let's move on. So again, let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm more than happy to talk about Jest some more. But I want to show you something new today. I'm going to talk about robots. I'm going to talk about Cypress. So we've kind of gone on this journey of thinking back to Monday. We started out with console assert, and we introduced this idea of calling our functions and evaluating what they returned as a way of proving their correctness, as proving that our functions work the way that we intend for them to work. So we started out with console assert. It wasn't very good. Console assert is really low level. It's kind of hard to work with. It ends up sneaking into your production code. Customers will end up running it. Console assert is not too good. It works in a pinch. You don't have to install any libraries, but the gist of console assert, it's not really that great or suitable for testing. Then we moved on to Jest, and you guys are working through Jest right now, but Jest is more of a framework built for us as programmers. It allows us to run this tool in our terminal and develop these tests and instantly get this feedback. It works at this function level, so calculate total. We're directly calling calculate total. We're passing it different inputs and we're expecting the outputs to be something. And this helps us to test our code, make sure that when we do things like refactor our code or change how different parts of our functions work by adding a sales tax and extending functionality, it gives us a chance to make sure that we haven't broken anything. So we've talked about Jest. Is Jest good enough? Yeah, Jest is good enough for a lot of these situations. And I hope you guys, after we're done with this week, I hope that you guys try using Jest on your capstone. Jest is a fantastic tool for doing test-driven development. But there's another tool, and it's called Cypress. And the way Cypress works is different than Jest. So if we look at our table with all of the things we've come across this week, and we line up all the pros and cons of each one of them, Cypress is very similar to Jest in that it has a high level abstraction. So some of the same things that you've done with Jest, some of the same keywords and concepts that you've used, we're going to carry over into Cypress. But the type of tests that it does is different. So the tests that we've been writing all this week are known as unit tests. Some of them might be considered integration tests, and we'll get into that in a second. But for now, what we've written up to this point are unit tests. And unit tests are testing one unit of work, one piece of work. On the other hand of that, Cypress does not just test one thing. Cypress tests lots of things. So if we look at each of the different types of tests, unit tests are really for testing one function, passing in some inputs, understanding what the outputs are. Integration tests are where you have more than one function, or you have functions that are calling other functions. When we talked about mocking briefly, that was for functions that were technically integration tests. They had multiple pieces going into them, or they depended on something else, whether that's a database or a backend or something like that. But what Cypress does is this functional end-to-end testing. And we're actually going to spin up something that's going to go and poke and prod the different pieces of our application. So we're not necessarily going to be looking at the code, the functions, but we're going to be looking at the application as a whole. Now you might be tempted into thinking, console assert, we've replaced that with Jest. You might be thinking that what I'm about to show you, we can use to replace Jest as well. So you might think that after I show you Cypress today, why would I even use Jest at all? And the answer to that is all of these different tools play a part in testing our applications. So Jest is responsible for testing our code at its lowest level, at the unit test level, testing functions, their inputs and their outputs. What I'm about to show you with Cypress is complementary to the tests that you've written with Jest. So they work hand in hand. All of the different types of tests that we've written this week, all the different tools that we've put into our tool belt are complementary. And they build this sort of pyramid of good comprehensive testing for your application. So don't think of what I'm about to show you as a replacement for Jest necessarily, but think of it more as it's a complementary tool for improving the correctness of your application, for proving that it is correct and bug-free. So how we're going to go about doing this. So picture Cypress as a robot. We were kind of joking yesterday about how folks have used Cypress for getting a ticket in line for the vaccination. I've seen Cypress used by scalpers for hot ticket items, like back when COVID first hit, folks were using Cypress to get diapers and toilet paper and all that sort of stuff. So think of Cypress as a robot. It's an automated tool that spins up a browser, runs instructions. We're going to use it for testing. It's primarily used for testing, but it's also just a generic automation tool. So think of Cypress as this robot that you can control. And you can feed Cypress these instructions. So here's some instructions for the website that you have been doing the homework on. So pretend like we have this robot and we ask the robot, hey, go open localhost 3000. Go open Nathan's web store, that homework that you guys saw yesterday. Go open that up in the browser. Maybe do a login step, put in a username and password. Go and add a couple items into the shopping cart, and then verify that the items in the shopping cart were added correctly. So verify that the functionality on the website works as intended. So this is what you're going to do with Cypress. You're going to feed it these instructions and ask it to do all these different actions. And by performing each of these actions, it's really passing tests as it goes along. So the login step, if the robot can do it, then the test passes. If the robot can add a couple items to the shopping cart, that's a test. That test passes. If the robot can see that the items that it added, it clicked on those different cards and they got added into the shopping cart. If the robot can see all of those items in the cart, the test passes. So that's how we're going to use Cypress. We're going to feed it these instructions. It's going to try to perform each one. If it isn't able to perform all of these instructions, then those are failures. similar to the red X's that you saw in the terminal when Jest failed. But we can't feed it these human instructions. We can't tell it the word open localhost 3000 in the browser. We can't tell it go add a couple items to the shopping cart. Instead, we've got to take these human instructions and convert them into instructions that Cypress will understand. And I'm going to walk through an example with all of you on how to get Cypress to do these things. So we can tell Cypress to visit web pages. We can tell Cypress to type into things. We can tell Cypress to click. We can tell Cypress to check if something exists in the web page. All right. So to get started with Cypress, Cypress doesn't come with Create React App. So you need to install it. And then there's one extra step. In addition to running the actual app, you also need to run Cypress alongside it. So we're going to do that. But all these slides, this walkthrough is in that careers and code base. But what I want to do is I want everybody to go to the careers and code base on their laptop. Make sure that you've pulled down the latest. Go into day 4. And then go into the Cypress password validator. So it should look something like this. If you don't see the Cypress password validator inside of day 4, then you didn't pull. If you do see it, then you pulled the latest. Is everybody able to get into that folder?
So we're opening a terminal at that address?
Open a terminal, open your IDE.
Yeah. Well, I'm at the Cypress password validator
Mhm.
folder in VS Code.
Yep,
And then
that's
open
where you
it.
should be.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess I have the same, just to be sure we're at the right level. We're opening the integrated terminal at that folder level.
Yes,
Okay,
integrated
that's-
terminal.
I think was, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're about to run into something fun here in a second. So once you're in there, go ahead and run in your terminal. Go ahead and run npm I -- save -dev Cypress. And it's going to take a little bit, so go ahead and kick that off. It's actually, I think it's actually downloading a copy of Google Chrome.
And what's the -dev? I don't think I've seen that before.
-- save dev. So if you save, if you use -- save, it's going to install it as a build dependency, which means that when you bundle up your app, it's going to go into the browser. It's going to be a library or a module that the browser has. If you do save dev, it's only going to be there for your development. So like Jest, for example, Jest is a dev dependency because it never gets bundled up and sent into the browser.
That makes sense. Thanks.
And for thoroughness, -uppercase S and -- save mean the same thing.
Is there a shorthand for save dev?
I don't believe so.
Shaw, you get an error on npm I save dev?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sure.
Others might be hitting the same thing.
Sure.
So you're in day 4. Cypress password validator, cool. What is the output from there? Just sorry. Only the word Cypress. Don't include the dash dot / node modules. Go ahead and backspace all that off.
That's
Yep,
it?
just the word Cypress. Yep. I'll update the slides and put a space in between those.
I think it's working.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, you're getting to my next part. So I don't know enough about VS Code. Is there a way to pull open a second terminal in VS Code? Do you guys know how to do that? Oh, okay, you guys do? Perfect. Yeah, get a second terminal. We're gonna need to run 2 commands. Thank you, Shaw. Shift command plus N.
So the next line of code, the / node modules, is that going to be what we put in the other terminal? Or should we be putting that in the first terminal we had open?
It doesn't matter. Both
Oh,
of these
okay.
commands are going to get run from the root of that additional password, or sorry, that Cypress password validator folder.
So we should go ahead and do that next line of code though, right?
Yes, once you're ready, go ahead and hit that node module bin Cypress open.
Okay, that's what I thought. But meanwhile, we're also opening another terminal.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So once you have a terminal that's running Cypress open, go ahead and run npm start in the other terminal. So you should have 2 things running, the Cypress open and the npm start. I'll show what that looks like.
Other terminal be at the same folder?
Same folder, yep. So I've got 2. Oh, I need to go ahead and install Cypress. Maybe it's already installed on my machine. Nice. Oops. So you should have something kind of similar to what my terminal has. So something that's running Cypress open. It should open this little window right here. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then the other one, the npm start. So you should have the JavaScript running as well. Anybody have problems getting here?
Yeah, I'm trying to like I guess pull and undo the changes that it did.
Oh, inside the careers and code base.
Yeah,
Do you want to share your screen?
sure.
Nice. Okay. So you're running git pull, and it's upset because there's an untracked tree file. Hit cancel. So it's see the error, the third line from the bottom in the output. The following untracked tree file would be overwritten by merge. So if you go and look in pricing test.js, yeah, because this is where you've been doing your homework, right? I think you're muted. Oh, yeah. Okay. So what should we do?
Yeah.
We could commit.
Oh, a commit. Okay.
Brian, what do you think? We could commit, but I don't know.
I was gonna say a git stash pop. You know what I'm getting at?
I do, but I don't. I'm worried about forgetting the pop.
Okay.
Is it going to be a prop? He might run into merge conflicts if we commit, right? Down
Is
the
this
road.
file in it deployed? Oh yeah, you made changes to this in the repo.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and commit. And I think this will be fine. So yeah, let's go ahead and commit. So in git commit. Yep. And then it's asking for a message. Just say stashing my changes up in the top where it says please provide commit message. At the very top of your IDE where that drop down box. Yeah, see where it says message commit on master. Yep,
Yeah.
click in there and just hit saving changes. Just type out a message. Yep. Hit enter. Okay, cool. Now try polling. Cancel. All right, let's.
I mean, I can always just like delete and then repull or whatever.
Yeah, can you just copy this file somewhere safe? So you've made changes to pricing test.js and pricing.js. Can you save those somewhere in like a new file?
That's what I did before I shared my screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I saved them.
Okay, so go ahead and in the terminal say git reset.
Oh, in a terminal. Okay.
Yep, git. That's the output.
Right. Let me see. No.
Nice. Okay. So cd into that careers and code base. Are you in there?
No, not yet. I'm gonna just CD. No, okay. But where you so just CD here. I'm like
Yeah, that works.
All right.
Do a git space reset. Do the same command except add to the end -- hard. Yep. There we go. Okay, now try. You can just type in this terminal git pull origin master. And then on the origin, it's ORIGIN. 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 Yep, an I there. Yep. Ooh, a merge conflict. Cool. So at this point, go into pricing test.js and paste your code that you saved somewhere else.
Okay.
We will get much more familiar with Git next week when we start GitHub Actions. Yeah, take all of it and paste. Perfect. Cool. Okay, and then back in your terminal, let's resolve the merge conflict. So hit enter or whatever to clear all that. Control C. Is that open?
No.
No. Oh, there we go. Oh, wait. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now say git commit -a. And then very carefully on your keyboard, type shift : WQ. Wait, no. Hold on. Backspace all the way. Keep going. Okay. Hit shift : WQ. Just the letters WQ. The letter W on your keyboard and then the letter Q. Oh, no, don't. You got an extra. Yep, just WQ. Enter. Very, very nice. We're in the danger zone for a second. Okay, now git. Wait, we already did the poll. That's how you got the merge conflict. So you should be good. If you go in CD into module 9, day 4. Yep, module 9, day 4. Yep. And then inside of here, go into the, oh, that's day 3. Close that. Day 4. You're going into the Cypress password. Yep, that's where you want to be. So CD into Cypress password. Cool. Enter. And now, yeah, now you're ready to go. This is where you want to be to run these 2 instructions, the npm I save dev Cypress. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can see these instructions. This right here. So install Cypress. Anybody else having problems getting here?
Latonia's having some issues. I think I understand what's going on. Would it be okay if Latonia shares her screen?
Oh yeah, let me stop.
So Latonia, did you by chance, when you installed Cypress, run it with sudo in front of it?
Nope.
Okay. It's kind of weird. Well, basically what happened is, for some reason, when Cypress was installed, it was installed with a sort of weird set of permissions or sort of weird set of access controls to the files. So what we've got to do is we've got to change those so that you have access to run Cypress. I don't know why that happened.
Okay.
But I can tell you how to fix it.
Okay.
So what you want to run is ch.
Oh, hold on a sec. Let me get in there. ch
mod
mod
space dash uppercase R space 777 space and then that error in the error message, you see where it says user, the path that starts with users and then with Cypress, the second line of the error message.
Yeah.
Take that, copy it, and then paste it.
Okay, hold on. Like so?
Yep, hit enter. Oh, probably need to run that with sudo.
Oh, so hold on. Oh wait, what's going on? Do we want it verifying Cypress?
Hit Control C. I'm not sure what it's doing. Well, okay. It's just doing its thing then. Yeah.
And you said sudo in front, right?
Yep, put sudo at the very front. And the other thing I think you're going to need to do is there's this couple new lines between the sevens. And if you go to the beginning of where it has like /users and you hit backspace until you get to the
Yeah.
sevens.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that new line is going to do anything weird, but I just want to get rid of it to make sure it's not going to. Okay, try that. Oh, yep, right
No,
there.
I just did that to make sure the space was out. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Now enter.
Enter.
What?
Put in
What
your
is it?
password.
My Mac password?
Yep.
Let's hope I did that right. All right.
It's
Okay.
incredibly hard to type your password when you're screen sharing.
Now try that Cypress open command again.
It should be password, Latonia,
What, the password? No,
or word pass.
not here.
Just testing.
So
Yes.
what happened?
The Cypress open one. You need to run that again.
Cypress.
Dot /
Oh,
node
the Cypress.
modules.
Oh. Did I? Okay. Modules. Stop. And I'm sorry, I know this is painful for everybody. And then open. Is that right?
Yep.
And enter.
Nice.
What happened? It looks like this is your first time. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We're good here. Is it supposed to be doing something different?
This looks good.
It's going.
We're good. Am I stop
Mhm.
hearing or?
Should let's wait and see if you. There you go. That's the window.
No,
you
we're
wanna
too
see.
quiet. We need feedback in here. Okay. All right. So I can stop sharing.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Let's. If anybody else has issues getting that window that Latonia shared, let me know. Otherwise, let's. We're gonna take 10 minutes now for a break. So we'll meet back in at 6:40. See you guys.
One quick question for you, Nathan.
Yeah.
Kyle asked, so bin stands for binary and it's a folder for applications.
Yeah, some node modules have an executable, a binary, like Cypress. Jest is another one. So you could actually invoke Jest with // node modules bin Jest. So some node modules have that, and yeah, that's where the binaries go. If it's a framework, if it's like a library, like a UI library or something like that, it probably won't have an executable. So some things will go in there if it's executable. Okay, see you guys in 10. Oh, you beat me to it, Ryan. Wow, good eyes on the CH mod. Now anybody on our computer can.
Yeah. I was wondering if you're going to call me out on that.
I'm just trying to think. Could you exploit something? Do you think Cypress? I would not be surprised if Cypress could do disk file access. Like it could do fixture load, so it has access to disk. You could exploit. You could read someone else's contents on their disk through Cypress. Maybe.
But it's a binary that's running as your user. It's not doesn't have that pseudo flag set on the binary, probably. I hope not.
So we wouldn't
Oh.
have access to other users' files. I don't know. I install pip globally, so
Yeah, I commit lots of sins with Python. But, so
Beware, gentlemen. We're listening. I'm only teasing you.
it's okay. I
Guys
use one
confess to
password.
committing sins in programming. Holy smokes. No one's ever done that before.
I feel like using one password covers for a lot of the insecurities.
I think password's a good password. If you use
Well-
different characters and you put it backwards, and then you take the backwards form of it with different characters, and then every other one you put in the other one's place. And it doesn't say password anymore.
So there's a really good XKCD thing on this. Just got to post that about passwords and what's important about passwords. Anyway, sorry. I'll put it in Slack too.
Nothing to be sorry for.
I knew someone that had their password as just like a space, like just a space bar or whatever. Like just a lot, yeah. It was so
So
hard.
what's the old 999999 is how you get this, like Joshua and War Games, is how you get in the back door.
Yeah,
The 9999 or a star 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 star. I don't think you can do that anymore. It's the wild frontier days.
Hey, Nathan,
Yes.
is it possible to, do you do one-on-ones, or should I save? I have questions about Mondays when I missed it from the internet and I
Dude.
followed the video.
Whenever. Just
Well,
hit
that's what
me
I'm
up.
saying. Do I schedule a one-on-one or do I wait until office hours? I don't know.
Whichever one is more comfortable for you.
Okay, and then I submitted last night's today because I had to clear my changes. I had to stash my changes because I did it in the file too.
Oh,
Sorry, I apologize. My window's open and I regret that. So when I sent that in, when you check that, will you please just let me know? So apparently I made an oopsie and saved something in Workspace last week and found out that that's not a file you can read on your end. So when you do check that, can you just like give me a heads up if it actually turned in correctly, please?
sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You can probably tell by my laughter, Ryan, I just read your post to Slack. Great.
Mhm.
I will share with my software engineer hubby.
So Ryan, the weekend project, in addition to the homework, is that usually divulged at the end of this?
I mean, I just brought it up whenever people asked. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for my module, like the first thing I did is I showed the end of class project, like first thing. And then kind of, I don't know, well, people are here, they can tell me if they like that or not, but like, then kind of they had sort of somewhat of a vision to what we were going towards.
I enjoyed that part of it, even though I wasn't really interacting too much initially, but that was a great part of it because it's like you kind of know. Well, first you start out not knowing what's going to happen, and then you see the end result, and then we take note of like, hey, this is what we should look out for because this is the end result of what we saw initially. So I think this is important, and this is how. Anyways, it's a good way to get certain thought processes started.
That's exactly true. And I was trained as a teacher, and that is good pedagogy to show an example of the kind of thing that the finished product may, what it might look like, not that you're aspiring to copy the teacher. And you get a rubric from that. And then you can go backwards and figure out, okay, how do we get there? Otherwise, it's like this weird mystery and it doesn't make any sense. And you're not really learning it because you're not seeing what it's going into. Although in the real world, you don't see the end product. So I don't know. But I enjoyed that. And Max does that too. He outlines things and then you can go from there. It's very helpful. And so this is the last class for the week. And so we should know what the weekend is.
Yeah.
That's how we've been doing it. I'm not an authority. I'm just here. Just I'm hanging.
Yeah, no, thank you for the feedback. Next week when we kick off DevOps, we're going to be deploying all of our capstones. Some people I think have taken a shot at deploying their projects, but I'm going to show you how to deploy it with Heroku. So when we kick that off on Monday next week, I'll show you what that end product looks like before we dive into how to do it. Okay. Let me go ahead and get back to share my screen. So if you've been following along, you've got two terminals open, one that's running Cypress, which is the robot that we're going to use to interact with our application. And then you've got npm start running. If you go to localhost 3000, the front end, you should see a very simple app. So this is where we started on Monday with the username and password. So I'm going to start off really basic, and then we're going to jump back into that Nathan's web store and look at how we can use Cypress there. But we're going to start off slow, and we're going to talk about how to use Cypress to test this application. So if you open up localhost 3000 in your browser, you should see something like this. And this has those password validation rules that we wrote this week. So ensuring that our password is greater than a certain length, doesn't contain a commonly used password, has at least one special character. So if you enter in something like that and include a special character and hit login, the message will print password is valid. But if you miss the special character, it'll say password is not valid. And we wrote tests for this. We wrote tests with console assert. We wrote tests with Jest. We're going to look at how we would do this with Cypress. All right. Go back to this. Right. So the rules for getting started with, man, I should have called this Cypress. The rules for getting started with Cypress look very similar to getting started with Jest. With a couple differences. Instead of calling our files the file that we're testing .test.js, we're going to switch to calling them .spec.js. It's a Cypress thing. Cypress looks for spec files or spec.js, files that end with spec.js. The reason why it's different than test.js is because Jest is looking for something, Cypress is looking for something else. So we change up the names so that each program can find the files that belong to them. So when we're creating our tests with Cypress, we always call them spec.js. So the name of the file, though, we're going to start off by calling it app.spec.js, and we'll get into what you can name this a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and do that. So hop into your IDE. When you installed Cypress, you should have gotten a Cypress folder. So does everybody see a Cypress folder?
I do. It's its own separate thing. It's not in the other, but it's in that directory. Yep.
Right. So at the top level, you should see a new Cypress folder. Cypress created this automatically when it was doing that installation for you. And if you go and take a look inside of Cypress, I'm going to open this up with my text editor.
Excuse me, Nate. It is under the Cypress password validator folder, though.
Right.
Oh, when
Right.
you said
It's
its own,
inside
I
of-
thought maybe it had to be up another level. Okay, got it.
Nope.
But it's not in source or whatever is what you meant. Okay, great. Thank you.
It's not in source. Right.
Right,
It's
I'm
a
good.
neighbor. Okay. So if you look in Cypress, there's a lot of files that it's auto-generated for you. You can mostly ignore a lot of these. The one folder that we care a lot about is the integration folder. So click into Cypress integration. And it has a couple folders in there. This is more stuff that Cypress has auto-generated for you. You can take a look at these if you want. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete these two folders because I don't need Cypress to tell me what tests to write. But within that integration folder, go ahead and create a new file and call it app.spec.js. So inside of that integration folder, inside of Cypress, create that app.spec.js. Okay, so that's step one. Now, before we move on to the next set of instructions, go ahead and open up the Cypress program. So when you hit Cypress open, it created this little window. This is the Cypress launch page, if you will. And if you deleted all the other folders that were there in the integration folder, you'll just see your app.spec.js. If you left them in there, you'll see a bunch of other tests that Cypress automatically generated for you. But if you click on this app.spec.js, it's going to launch a copy of Chrome. So this is the Cypress UI. This is what the robot is controlling. And over on the left, it says no tests found. And that's because we haven't written anything in that app.spec.js file. But is everyone able to see this?
I apologize, Nate. This is Latonia. Should I be worried if there's a type error over there? An uncalled error was detected outside of the test.
You're seeing that in this browser?
Over, yep. On that left, yep. On the left hand, yep. Where yours is just saying no test found, I have other stuff in there.
Oh. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure. I don't know. I didn't touch anything, I don't think.
What's inside of your app.spec.js?
Uh-oh.
Okay, go ahead and delete that for now.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're on the right track though.
Oh, goodness. Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Sorry.
Yep. Is everybody else able to get to this point where they've launched the UI, but they don't have any tests? Seeing some thumbs up, cool. All right, so let's get to writing tests. You guys will be pleased to hear. Hopefully, go ahead.
Yeah, I launched it, but I have like mini tests.
Yeah, so if you leave those tests in that integration folder, if you don't delete those, yes, Cypress will try to run those. So Jahil, go back to the hub, the runner right here, and click on the app.spec.js. Don't run any of the other tests. Just click right on this.
Oh, yeah, copy. Thank you.
Got it. Cool. You, Carolyn, you have to make the app.spec.js. So inside of the Cypress folder, inside of integration.
Then they're done that.
Okay.
I mean, that's, yeah,
Do you want to share your screen?
sure. What's it doing? Whoa. Now Chrome quit. All right, I'll share my screen. I don't know what this thing is doing. All right. You guys out of the way. You. All right, so I did have that launch screen or whatever. There it is. But then since then, I got these two. So I don't know which one you want to
So
look at
close
first.
this window. Close this window.
Okay, I'm looking at two monitors, sorry.
then hit just OK on the crash report. Okay, and then scroll down through the hub. Where's your app spec.js?
That's
Scroll
my,
up,
yeah.
scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Okay,
That's,
I don't think you have one.
question.
So go ahead and go into your IDE
there it is, see it?
and yep, click in here and just hit save real quick. Command S.
In case it doesn't know I saved it. And I don't need
Yeah,
any
that's what
code in there.
Yep, no code. I think that's all we were missing was. Okay, scroll down. Should be at the very bottom.
I know, that's the problem.
All right. So hit the big red X, stop. When you hit that, it's gonna close that browser that the robot's spinning up. Go ahead and close this window. And then in your terminal, yeah, okay, so it's already disconnected it.
Yeah, I've got these two going, so I'm already forgetting which one's for which.
Yeah, keep that open. Over on the left, go ahead and just delete the getting started and the advanced examples folder. We're not gonna need those. Yeah, so just right click on it and hit delete.
Mhm.
And then in that terminal, press up and relaunch the,
Command up, right?
just up, like the arrow up should give you the
Oh,
last
just
one.
the arrow?
Yep, there you go, hit enter. There you go. And just
Oh,
click on
interesting.
app.spec.js.
I wonder why, all right. And we're keeping this window open, right?
Keeping it open. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'm ready to move on. Thank you.
All right. All right, so let's start writing our first test. So everyone's in app.spec.js. So this is going to look very familiar because Jest and Cypress share a lot of the same API where they look very similar. So we're going to start off again with a describe block. For the describe, let's just call this password validator. And then we're going to open up a closure or a callback. Okay. And then we're going to create an it block. And I think for this first test, what we're going to do is we're going to make it visit the web page. Okay. Should look very similar to Jest. It's not Jest though. This is Cypress. It just looks very similar. It behaves somewhat similarly. And if you save that and you go back to your window that's running the app.spec.js, you can just leave this open. But over on the left, that should look really familiar too. Kind of looks like Jest, right? Except it's not necessarily in a terminal, but it's going to give you a green check mark because it executed what was in the it block, even though there were no instructions. It's going to show up over here on the left. Again, password validator, that describe, it's just like putting a title on this.
Ariel asks, is it test/it again or only it?
Good question. So for this, it's only it. Test won't work. Which is kind of why I steered more towards it in the Jest example, hoping that you would use it exclusively instead of test, because Cypress uses it. So I was hoping you would only need to learn one thing. So Ariel, I know you like using tests in Jest, but you're gonna have to use it in Cypress. Okay, so everybody's at this point. Let's go ahead and write our first Cypress instruction. That's going to look a little bit different than Jest because this is Cypress, not Jest. If you want to access the robot, you say sci dot, and the first command I'm going to teach you guys is visit. Visit takes one parameter, and visit is the URL that the robot should go to. So I'm going to say HTTP localhost. I'm going to point it at the create React app and save. And if you go back to the test runner, I'll leave that up over here on the side. If you go back to the test runner, you should see that the robot has navigated to that web page. If your robot didn't navigate to this page, I would double check and make sure you've got npm start running in the background, because your create React app needs to be running in order for the robot to visit it. Make sense? Okay, so this is pretty cool, but it's not really doing much. So this test is just proving that it can visit the web page. Now, if I didn't have npm start running, I'm going to go ahead and disable npm start. And I go back in here to rerun the test. There's a little refresh icon right here. And you can click that and it will rerun those tests, similar to how Jest would automatically rerun tests for you. Cypress will rerun tests for you most of the time, but if you haven't changed any of the test code, it won't. So I just went and reran this and had my npm start turned off, and the test failed because it couldn't reach localhost 3000. There is no localhost 3000 anymore. So this is what it looks like if the test fails. So keep npm start running. Here we go. Robot visited the web page. Okay, so let's make it do some stuff. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. I'm going to just keep going. So what we want this app to do is to test a different password. So we want the robot to try to log in. And we already know what it takes for logins to be successful or to fail. So let's go ahead and write a test that proves that this app will handle a failed login. A failed login looks something like a really short password, right? Not getting the same web page with the tests. You're right, because I killed my npm start. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm getting a little frustrated and confused. I thought we were supposed to be seeing that page
Oh, no.
a few minutes ago,
No.
and I wasn't, but I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, you don't have to kill. I was just trying to show you what would happen if you didn't have localhost 3000 running.
Okay, I got lost in the weeds with that, and I thought it wasn't
Sorry.
working. So we should still have this basic screen here.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yep. So let's go ahead and have the robot try a failed login. And a failed login looks like a short password, because we reject short passwords. And it prints out this message, password is not valid. So what we want the robot to do is to type in a short password, hit the login button, and then we want to check and see if it prints out this message, password is not valid. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the robot. So after the robot has visited localhost 3000, we can tell it to find this box and type in a short password. The question is, how do we tell the robot to find this box? So it would be something like
CY find.
CY.find, yeah, that would be the first thing that would come to mind. I actually don't know, is CY find a method? Or Cypress find a method? It is. Oh. So we're actually going to use get and not find. I'm not actually 100% sure how find works, but we're going to use sci.get. So what you want to do is say sci.get, and then you're going to pass it a string. And the string can be different depending on what it is that you're trying to find, where you're trying to send the robot to do something. So if we go and look inside of source and we look at the React component that rendered this input element right here, this password input element. So go over to app.js and you'll see there's an input element right here with an ID of password. Blow this up a little bit. We're going to use this ID equals password. We're going to use that to help the robot find where the input box is.
Can we also do that with name or no?
Yes, you can totally do it with name, and I'll show that in a minute. Okay, so it has an ID of password, and the way that you would say ID is with a pound sign, password. So the pound sign means, if anybody's familiar with jQuery or the built-in document query selector, it's the same syntax. So if you're trying to find something that is an ID, you would do a pound sign. If you're trying to find something with a class name, you would do a dot. Yeah, exactly. It's is it more accurate to Ryan to call it a CSS selector?
Yeah, it is a CSS selector.
A CSS selector. Thank you.
So you could put anything you want in there that's a valid CSS selector. You could do like div space like A to find like all tags, A tags that are inside of a div. You could do like bracket name equals whatever bracket to like find something that has the attribute of name. Like all the sort of CSS selector stuff you're familiar with will work here, which is pretty cool.
So if we do sci.get on an element with ID password, what it's going to do is it's going to send the robot straight to that password box. Once it's on that password box, we can tell it what to do next by chaining on another method, which I'm going to use the type method. Type takes whatever it is that you've selected and it types that string into whatever it is. So I'm going to type in ASD, which is a really short password. It should fail if we do that. But you can put anything in there. You guys know the rules at this point for what passwords fail validation. So pick your own favorite password that fails validation. Okay.
How do you slow down the robot?
How do you what?
How do you slow down the robot?
That's a good question. I believe you could probably do some awaits in here on a. Ryan, do you know of a simple way to do it?
So well, just to start with, the reason why it's so fast is because, and Nathan, it might be good to jump back so other people who aren't seeing this can see what Jahil's talking about. But like it runs it really, really fast. Like it's running it as fast as it would run code. And it's like trying to do it really, really quick. And the reason why that's good is imagine you've got like 100 of these tests and you're running all of them. You don't want the robot to be like, click, oh, I'm going to click over here. You don't want it to take a really, really long time. You want your test to run as fast as you can. So that's why like it runs so fast. And usually that's what you want. But if you want to slow it down, there is a way you can do it. Cypress has a function called sci.delay you can put a number of things, you can pass a number of things aside with delay, but if you give it a number, it basically will wait for a certain amount of milliseconds. So you could say like sci.visit, whatever, sci.delay 1,000, and then sci.get password type, whatever. And sci.delay would wait a second between those two things. Yeah, Kyle, so Kyle says like set timeout. Yeah, kind of similar. Oh, is it not sci.delay? It might be sci.wait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds
sci.wait.
right.
That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. So I put 5,000, which is going to be 5 seconds, and you can see this waiting for 5,000, and then it's going to type in the password.
But I want to mention one more thing about sci.delay, or sci.wait, excuse me. It's kind of an anti-pattern in Cypress to use them all over the place. In general, the way Cypress is written, your test should be able to run really fast. And if you have to forcibly wait for some reason, that probably means there's something you're not doing that you could make it so that your test would run fast. Like slow running tests are kind of bad because if tests run really slowly, it means your iteration time is going to be slow. So you make a change, you save it, you have to wait like a minute for all your tests to run versus you make a change, you save it, your tests run in like 2 seconds, which is better. I mean, of course, the 2 seconds, because then you can make change really quickly and see how that affects all your test cases. So in general, it's something you want to avoid, but it's good to know that it exists. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it would suck if like you're trying to debug something and every time there's a process that you have, it takes 5 minutes, which is not that long initially until you're doing it 50 times, and then that's like, pretty much entire work
So
day.
Nathan can speak to this too, but any sort of large scale application you work on has a massive test suite that always takes minutes if you're lucky to run, sometimes like tens of minutes to hours, depending on the size of it. So what you end up doing usually is you run part of the test suite. Like you find that the test suite that covers the bits you're working on, you run those locally. And then when you're done, you like cross your fingers and hope, and you push it up and you let all the tests run, and you just hope that like none of the other tests fail. And if they do, then you have to then like locally rerun those tests because they were too slow and you didn't want to run everything the first time. And then like you do like a second round of troubleshooting, and you kind of play this game where you're never really able to run the full test suite. So you're doing the best you can because it's really slow. So anyway.
So is everybody able to get the robot to type in something into the password box? Thumbs up, nice.
I'm sorry, Nathan. How do we know if it ran it? I put my side dot get in there and I still have a green check mark, but I didn't actually see anything happen.
So did you also add the dot type after the get?
Sure did. Yep.
Okay, and then back over here in the browser, if you click this run all tests button right here.
Oh, it's working. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, so that's step 1 was visiting page. Step 2 was finding the box, entering in a short password.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting that test panel, just like I mentioned before.
This over here?
Yes.
Okay, let me stop sharing. This is good. Debugging is good.
I'm sorry to be such a pain in the
No, you're good.
whatever
This
part
is
of the anatomy.
This is your browser that you're looking at right here. If you go and see down at the bottom, you've got 2 Chromes open next to the Sci in your dock at the bottom.
2 Chromes, I just right here.
Over to the right, though, you have 2 Chromes over there. Keep going to the right.
Okay, some of the Zoom stuff's in the way. Bear with me while I get it out of the way. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's 2 instances of, yeah.
So the robot launches its own Chrome. So if you click on one of those.
Okay.
Or maybe it's the other one.
No,
You gotta
Click on the CY.
Yep.
Click on the CY circle, the Cypress circle,
oh,
right.
yeah, Cypress, gotcha.
and then hit that run one integration spec, or just click on the app.spec.js, either one will
Just
work.
one
Yep,
click or
that.
two? Or-
There we go. Now it's gonna spin up a.
No, it's got its own, it's supposed to be in its own. All right, and that,
Mhm.
but it's a different local host. Okay, I'm a little confused, but I'll stay with you. No test found.
So it's saying that you're missing a semicolon. So let's go look at your appspec.js.
Oh, heavens. What is,
I think escape maybe will help.
there, thank you.
So you have a extra parenthesis after the password validator. See the on line 1?
Yeah, before the comma. This
Thank
is what
you.
we
it's
did
back. It's
yesterday.
back to haunt you. Yep.
I don't know what the deal is here, but I just, my muscle memory, I put it in there. Because I see an
Don't forget
open
the-
one. Oops, I need a quote. I have to close
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
Oh, jeepers creepers. All right, and it's doing
So-
what it's supposed to do, so that's good. There it goes. So then.
Let's check. Yeah. And then hit that refresh icon, yep, to the left.
Oh, okay.
And you'll watch the robot re-perform all the tests.
Whoa.
Cool.
I want to try that again because I missed the first one. Oh, it's too fast. I didn't see it do password. Oh, no, wait a minute. Anyway, whatever. Okay, it's working. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I'm
Sorry.
going to go back to share
Yeah,
my screen.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we entered in a password. Now let's go and hit the login button. So we're going to do a sci.get. We're going to need to find that login button in order to click it. So does anybody know how we could target that login button? How we could find it with the robot? I'm going to go back to app.js and take a look. Latonia, yeah, we could put an ID on it. If we take a look here at line 34 in app.js where the button is being rendered, yeah, we could target the type. Yep. It's also the only button on the screen. So we could just look for a button and do it that way. Any other thoughts?
One more thing I'll throw out there. There's a way in Cypress you can target things by what they contain as well. So if you wanted to click on a thing that contained the string login, that might be another option.
Actually, that's a really good one, Ryan. Why don't we start with that, and then I'll talk about the data sci here in a second. So let's do that. Instead of using .get, we can use a method called .contains, which is going to do a search on the page to find text. So we can put in contains login, because the text login is being rendered there. So we can use that to find it. And then once we've found it, there's one method called .click, which tells the robot to click on what you've just found.
And does case matter? If you had just written login without the capital, does it matter?
It does matter.
It does matter. Okay, thank you.
It does matter. So if we save and use lowercase, you'll notice that Cypress stalls right here. and it's not able to find a lowercase l because it's uppercase L. So like children, yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is like a human tester that's going in here, but completely automated. So replacing the human work of going through and testing your app with a robot that can do it much quicker and much more efficiently. So it should be an uppercase L because that's what's on the screen. But if we go back to the get really quick, I just want to show another way of doing this that is considered best practice with Cypress. So if you've got something that you want to target, contains the scanning, yeah, it's scanning. I guess it would be more accurate to say it's scanning all of the text. It's not actually looking at any of the HTML elements and their properties necessarily. It's just looking for whatever's rendered on the screen. And then finding whatever the element is that's producing that text. But I just want to show really quickly the quote unquote best practice way for finding things with Cypress. So when you're writing your HTML or your JSX over here, when you're actually working on your app and you want to find and target something, one way that they recommend doing this is to create a special attribute on your element called data-sci and giving it a name. So data-sci, we're going to call this the login. Some people might call this login dash button. You can call it whatever you want. But you can create this attribute. It's only ever going to be used by Cypress. This is a convenience for you. So you can add this attribute to make it easier. So once we have this data-sci attribute on our button, we can go back to our appspec.js. And then the CSS selector for the data-sci attribute looks like this. Yeah. Brian, does data-sci get stripped in build?
It does not. However, there are, I have seen code, I've seen people write code to try to do that. So it's possible to do, but it's not something that gets done automatically.
Okay.
I also wanted to point out quick, like, what's the advantage to using data-sci over other things? Like, why are like some of these things better than other things? After I'm done talking, I'll post a link in the Slack. The Cypress documentation is amazing, and they have a page that like talks about all these different targeting methods, which ones they recommend and why. But the really quick version of it is, a lot of the problem that you'll run into with Cypress is having a test and then changing the markup of your page, and then the test no longer passing because your markup's substantially different, but maybe it still looks the same. So an example is like, let's say you were targeting a button and you did sci.getButton.click. And let's say you want to change that button from like a button to like an input type submit or something like that. Well, now that test isn't going to work anymore because it's targeting a button and not an input type submit. So as you can see, something as really as broad as button is kind of a bad way to target like an element like that. So data-sci, what's kind of nice about it is you can put it on anything. And because it serves a singular function of testing, you can put it on the thing you want Cypress to click. And it's not something that's used by other parts of the application. It's not used for styling. It's not used for anything like that. So because it's only used for Cypress, you can, if you change your styling around, if you put that on the thing Cypress should click in the test is going to continue running, and you won't have to change the test, even though you might change your markup. And that's also, they kind of the two things they prefer you to do are the data-sci, and kind of the secondary one is checking the contents of the element, because it's more likely, like if you may have a button, a submit versus a button or whatever you're doing there, Like the contents is probably going to stay the same because that's what's being shown to users. So that's a little bit more of a stable thing than maybe the exact markup. But data size is still what they recommend. So if anyone's curious, I'll post the deep dive in Slack. But hopefully that was helpful. Latonia said, like adding an ID to a target. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I meant
On
like
startup.
just add an ID when we want to target an element. And so you add an ID knowing it's only going to be on that element, and then you can switch all stuff around it and still it works for you. In my head,
exactly. Yeah, it's just data size, like a Cypress specific version of that you can use that only Cypress will deal with.
And then as far as having the robot perform a function after the initial launch, if you want to do something between the sci.visit and any of your other statements, yeah, you can write any kind of code you want in here. You can have the robot do anything else. You can also modify the web page if you really wanted to. The robot will let you do that. But typically, you're not modifying the page unless you have a very specific thing that you're trying to accomplish. So we've gotten the robot to do all these things, and in and of itself, that is pretty cool because it's exercising that a password can be entered and the button can be clicked. What about the message password is not valid? Because we put in a short password, how do we test that that message was produced? You guys probably can figure this out already. We can use the same thing where we're trying to find elements that are getting rendered to the screen. We can use the same thing to check for the password is not valid message. So after we're done with our click, we can go back into our test and then we can try to find that message. So I'm going to start with probably the worst way of finding that message, which is sci.contains. So password is not valid was the message. So now the robot quickly types in ASD, hits login, and then this test here passes because it found the words password is not valid. Does that make sense to everyone? If for some reason it had been password is valid, so let's go back to, here's the function, if you guys remember this, here's the function that does the is password valid. I'm going to take out the block, or actually I'm just going to put a return true here. And that's just always going to say that the password is valid. Now, if I rerun these tests, this test is now going to fail because it's saying that the password is valid. So that's what it looks like if the test, if our code wasn't correctly checking for valid passwords. I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay, and refresh here. So is everybody able to get contains to work? All good. Sweet. Anybody having problems getting this password is not valid?
Hey Nate, it's Latonia. I'm not having any problems. I'm just in that case, it's just screening. It's just like quickly reading what's on that entire page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was just kind of fuzzy about how it's working, but thanks.
Now that's kind of the weakest sort of test we can do, because what if we later decided to refactor the message from, instead of saying password is not valid, we say password not allowed. All of a sudden our tests are going to break because this contains, it's not going to find that string on the web page anymore. So going back to the data sci, there's a better way of doing this. So let's go back here where we're setting the message. Oh, I'm directly rendering whatever the message is here. So we are going to switch this up a little bit to return true or false if the password is valid. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this use state to be empty and change the React state here from valid to from set message to valid. So we're going to instead save off a Boolean for if the password is valid. And get rid of this. So let me do this really quick, and then I'll post this code in chat, and you guys can paste this into yours. So we're going to do a check here to see if it's valid. We're going to render a key that contains password is valid. Otherwise, we're going to return a P that says password is invalid, which is going to start off with having a empty so Ryan, help me. JavaScript.
Yeah,
How
you
do we
need like
test for undefined?
a type of equal undefined.
Yeah, how about we don't do a big ternary and we just make a,
Yeah, it's going to be weird with 'cause it's a tri-state, not just a Boolean.
so if valid, oops,
Other thing you could do, which maybe is a bad idea, but you could put a React element in your set state, and you could like set
yeah.
message p tag. But
I thought about that. I just didn't want to steer that way.
okay.
Let's just do a really simple variable that holds the JSX element. So if it's valid, then we produce a message. Else, if, oh, sorry, let's start with this. If, set this to null to begin with. Oops. Coding on the spot. Here we go. If valid equals null, do nothing. Else, if it's valid, we put in a message. Otherwise, it will be false. We'll say password is invalid. Then we'll render the message. Just run this really quick, make sure it's working. Yep, it doesn't spit out anything at the beginning. Cool. All right, I'm going to paste this in the, oh man, I'm going to paste this for everyone to see. Nathan's React code. Here we go. So go ahead and paste that code into your app.js. Just replace all of your app.js code with that. Okay. So what I wanted to show here is instead of doing this sci.contains where we're looking for this literal password is not valid string, if we refactor our messages to hold slightly different text, the tests are going to break. So let's use that data sci attribute in order to target these. So we'll say something like, for the data sci for the password is invalid, we'll put invalid password as the data sci attribute. And then let's also go ahead and make a data sci where the password is valid. And let's set that to valid password. So now, depending on which one gets rendered, it will render with this data sci attribute. And we can use that to target what was rendered to the screen or what was displayed to the user. So once you have these data sci, then we can go into our app spec.js and we can update our selector from looking for the words password is not valid. We can change that to trying to find this data sci attribute invalid password. So let's go over to app spec and do that really quick. So we're not going to use contains, we're going to use get to find a data sci attribute of invalid password. Everybody with me still? Did I lose anybody? I know I changed code on you. I'll go
So-
back to the, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Latonya. So we just wrote the word. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
I'll go back to the app.js for you guys to see this again. So we just added a attribute to both of these P's. Data sci is equal to invalid and data sci is equal to valid password. So now we're targeting on those as opposed to the text that's inside here. So we could do something like change up the message, password is invalid to, that's not a great
Excuse me, Nathan.
password.
Could you do a split screen so the app is on one side and the app test, that's not what it's called, is on the other side? Because I'm trying to look at that code too.
Sure,
And you'd have to, yeah. Thank you very much.
you're very welcome. So here's the sci.get, and here is where we are creating those tags.
You should probably also change the where it says visits the web page for under the it statement, because it's
Yep,
descriptive anymore.
it's doing way more than that, totally. So we can go ahead and update this. I'll wait a second. Just if everybody's good, can I get another thumbs up real quick and then we'll move on to the next.
I'm good. I am a little curious about the square brackets, I guess they're called, around the data sci. Is that is there anything else that you need to put the square brackets around? Is that a certain category of things within Cypress, or because everything else,
Remember,
like the pound sign or the dot or whatever?
remember, this is a CSS selector rule, so it's not Cypress necessarily that's enforcing those square brackets to be there. This is the rules for doing the CSS selection.
Okay.
So,
You may
so
not
if
have
you're
covered
trying,
that.
I'm trying to remember if we used square brackets like that in CSS. I don't remember that.
yeah, you would use the square brackets if you wanted to target an attribute of an element. So data sci or name or any kind of custom tag that you're going to put on it.
Oh, it's for a custom tag. Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I don't think it would work for ID because ID is meant to be
Right,
hand
right.
signed, but
I'm pretty sure it will, although it's just you
It
wouldn't
will.
really have to do that.
yeah.
And what was it, Kyle, you just pointed out a few minutes ago? Something that should be changed in light of a change we made. And I was working on the other code.
Oh, just up where it says it, the second line there, it says it visits the web page.
Yeah,
Just the descriptor. Now it's checking if the password is valid is what I changed mine to. But
oh,
just describing what the test is for, basically.
so it should be password is valid.
Yeah, because we're doing more than this. That's a good point. So
Okay.
we can call this, it visits the web page and checks for a short password.
Hmm.
That's just what I would call it. You can call it whatever you want. Because again, these strings
Isn't
are
it-
for you.
Isn't it kind of given it's going to go to the web page, you hope? Because where else would it check?
Yes. Oh, good point.
I mean, I don't know, verbosity in favor of insufficient information, if you want to try to remember 3 days later what you were doing at 5 o'clock on a Friday. But it just seems like a lot of words to me personally. So is it okay, like if I just focus on the password part, or should I include more?
No, you can do you. These are for you.
All
Yeah,
right.
if you feel more comfortable just saying that it checks for a short password, by all means.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Let's jump into checking for a valid password. So this is just like Jest. If we wanted to create another test case, all we would do is take the block that we just wrote, paste it, and then let's update this. So we're going to make this test not check for a short password, but we're going to make it check for a valid password. And it's going to do the same thing in this test. It's going to go visit localhost 3000. It's going to find the password box. It's going to type in not ASD. We're going to give it a long password that isn't commonly used and a password that has a special character. You put your own password in there. Then we're going to reuse the code we had before where we find the login button and we click it. And then down here where we check to see if the invalid password message was rendered, we would expect the valid password message to be rendered, right? Because we gave it the robot entered in a valid password. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Cypress, take a look at the Chrome that's running. Here's the replay of what the robot's doing. So it quickly runs through the first one, and then it runs through the second one. So I've got both green arrows on my screen. Is everybody else getting that? All right. Any questions? That is it for this example, Ryan. Do you have anything that you want to point out?
I was going to maybe mention something quick about some of the bells and whistles in the Cypress interface, but if anybody has any questions, they should go first.
For some reason, I'm getting an error. I don't know. Like I'm checking it and I feel like I did the right stuff here.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sorry, folks. I'm sure it's something small again.
We all benefit when we do this debugging.
Did I copy too
So
much, less, or?
I wonder if it's the fact that the string in both of the it cases is the same.
Oh,
So it visits the web page and checks. So is that the same as the other one?
it was exactly the same, yeah. And you did change yours, but I changed my input, my what it was testing, but I didn't change. Oh, it still doesn't
I
like
think
this.
this is not a creative password. So you updated your message. Nice, cool. Is your password quote unquote secure enough? Because remember, in order for it to be a valid password, it needs to be greater than 7 characters and include a special
So
character.
I was still operating the not valid. I didn't actually make it valid. I think that would do it though.
I don't think this will work either. I think you need one more character.
Oh, one more character. Sorry.
There you go. Oh, you're looking, so your get. Let's go back to the test. So see your get.
Yeah. CY
It's
dot.
looking for a valid password. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I think all this is right. I'm wondering why ZYXQRS.
That's 8, 9.
Give it some more.
Check whether, would this still be too similar?
No.
Local
Let's go back to your app.js.
app.js right here.
Yeah, let's scroll up a little bit. Let's look at the tags that you made. Did you make a valid password? So I
valid
think you need a
space.
dash.
Where? Oh, in here.
Mhm.
That was actually my question earlier. I was like, I don't have a dash, but then I saw that it matched the other one, so I didn't ask the question. Did that work?
So go ahead and click on it and hit rerun.
Oh. Yep.
Nice.
Good. All right. Thanks, folks. Love the teamwork.
Carolyn wanted to share her screen too.
Sorry, little family powwow. I couldn't hear you in the dining room. Yeah, is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, they just got back and, all right, this is what I'm getting when I try to run the code. So I probably have some thing in the code.
So take a look at that error message. See on line 9.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, I put a second hyphen in?
A second quotation mark and a parentheses, it looks like. Oh, and a hyphen, yeah.
What the hey? I think my fingers are just going crazy tonight. They have a mind of their own. Okay. Hold on here. Zoom, get out of the way so I can find my, there we go. Where am I? What file am I in? I'm in the app file, right? All right.
Before you leave here though, the data side attribute where you see valid password and invalid password,
Mm-hmm.
put a hyphen between the valid password and the invalid password. So it's one string with a hyphen.
I was actually wondering about that, but then I didn't see it. And okay.
There we go.
Now, I still want to be in this file, correct? Line 9.
Go over to the app spec.
Oh,
.js.
there we go. Line 9. Get data.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Right, it's
Yep.
me. My pinky's been, and
Yeah, there we go.
thanks.
And I think
I
you've
gotta
got the
get back.
same
Yeah. What's that?
down on valid. I think you got the same issue down on the next test.
Oh, because
as
I
well.
copied it and pasted.
Nice.
You know, I hope I get past some of this silly stuff and the problems I have will make, be more justified than stupid things
Oh,
like this.
no.
Let's see.
We need the debugging practice.
Hmm?
We need the debugging practice.
Okay, yeah, it's little things that I'm, um,
Unrecognized expression.
all right. I don't want to
Okay,
take the whole
so
class away from others, but
let's go back to the app spec test. And you can see that it's not finding that data psi.
I didn't see what line that was on.
Okay, then let's
Oh,
go back to. Yeah, that looks right. Let's go back to to the test runner. So it's saying that it can't find something with the data side login. So it's not.
This right here, right? This error?
Mhm.
Okay,
There's a
because I think there's
selector and
one
a
up here too.
Yeah, I would check and see is that selector, is that data psi equals login actually in your app.js?
Okay.
So let's go
Nathan,
back
it's
to.
the selectors and it contains, not a get.
So let's switch line 7, psi.contains, because remember, contains is looking for the text on the web page. Let's switch psi.contains to psi.get on line 7. Good catch, Ryan. I was thinking all kinds of other stuff, and
I know, it's like the most obvious thing, but it, okay.
and then the same
And
thing on
down here.
line 17. Yep.
Yeah, right here. Get. All right. Oop. What's it? I didn't click on anything. Oh, there we go. Do I need to refresh again?
So it's trying to find the login button, but it's not. Okay, now I think it's a selector issue. So let's go back into app.js and take a look at the code in there, app.js. And then let's scroll down and find that login button.
Oh, it's
So
in the
see
form.
on line 31 how you have a data-psi attribute right there. That's how we're finding that button.
Mhm.
And notice how it's lowercase l.
Oh, I did the same
Login.
thing. Whoopsie. Jeepers. Ah, you're not gonna hire me, are you? Okay. Before I apply to work with you,
There
I
we
think
go.
this stuff will work. Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for indulging me. All right. Okay, stop share. Thank you.
So Latonia
Okay.
wants to hear all my bells and whistles about the Cypress interface. Can I do a quick little thing on a bunch of little niceties in the interface?
By all means.
Can you share your screen again, Nathan? So you've probably noticed, but like the Cypress interface is in a web browser. It's not a terminal. So it's actually a bit more of a rich interface. You've got a bit more you can do in it. So you'll see that you've got the sidebar and you've kind of got the main view, and the main view being on the right, the sidebar being on the left. And the main view kind of has a lot of similarities to a web browser. You've got like the section below, you can see the content. You've got a little URL bar up there. And if you were running the test slowly, you'd actually see that URL bar would start blank. And then when you called sci.visit, the little URL would pop in there. So it kind of matches sort of and you can click on it and it'll open a new tab too. But it matches sort of the web browser you'd expect. In addition, on the left side, this is kind of where there's all the information about your tests are. So you can see the top, there's a sort of a summary of like the number of tests that have passed and failed. There's a number there, 0.89, and Nathan, if you hit refresh, you can watch that as it goes. But that actually is a timer, and it shows you how long it takes your test to run. And I mean, really this is just there so that you have sort of an idea, but there's no, whether your tests take a long time to run or they run really quickly, I mean, they still pass, so it doesn't really matter. It's more just as a developer, just so you have an idea of how long they take. We've talked about already the refresh button. So you can hit that at any point you want, it'll rerun your tests. And once you hit it, it turns into a stop and you can stop them. So if you've got a long running test you want to kill, just like maybe you'd have a long running process in the terminal, you kill by hitting Control-C, similar sort of idea where you can press stop and it'll stop the in progress test. In addition, so the final thing is on the sidebar, each of those tests themselves, ooh, what happened there? Interesting.
I hit stop to try to illustrate stopping the test.
Cool. Okay. But each of these tests is clickable. So if you click on that first one, you can see it kind of breaks down all the steps. If you hover over each step, it'll do something kind of cool on the right side. So Nathan, if you go step by step, people can see, but it'll start by, it'll hover over like the password. When you do the get, it'll show you that it's targeted that element. And when you hover over type, it'll show you that it's typing into that box. It'll actually, if you click on it, you can go down to before and after, and you can see how that changed. So before is what the page looked like before, and after is what it looked like after. So you can see like the text got put into the text box. And you can kind of keep going down, clicking on, hovering over the items. You can kind of walk through this test step by step and see exactly what happened as you went. So this level of debuggability in test frameworks is kind of unheard of. And I think it's really part of why Cypress is one of the market leaders in this space, because it makes it really easy to figure out what went wrong with your test. And in general, being able to confirm that you're selecting the thing you expect to be selecting is so helpful. Like I use that when I'm dealing with Cypress, I use it regularly. And all the tests, so similarly to how it worked in Jest, each test shows individually, and they all go under the describe header. But also in Cypress, because Cypress can run tests in multiple files, it also puts it under another header, which is like the file name. So you'll see up top, it says cypress/integration/app.spec.js. And if you, for example, are running multiple files, you'd see file names and describes underneath of them, and then it's underneath the describes. And then lastly, Latonia mentioned, I didn't talk about what's in the very upper right-hand corner, the 1000 by 600. So that is where Cypress will tell you your screen resolution of the test environment. And you can change that if you want. It'll tell you how to do it. In practice, you can leave it at what it is by default. I think I've only changed it once because there was some sort of test scenario where I wanted a bigger screen. The downside is if you make it bigger, it's going to fit that screen into that sidebar. So it's going to make all the text smaller and harder to read. So in general, that default they give you is kind of a good balance between like enough size so that you can see what's going on, and so it's not super tiny. The text is not super tiny. There's one last button I didn't mention, which I'm going to just go over real quick, but I don't really use it. Some people do, maybe Nathan does. Yes, the selector playground thing. So if you click on this, Cypress will try to tell you how, if you click on an element, it'll give you a suggestion on how it thinks you should target it. So I find these to be kind of unreliable and not all that helpful, but I know some people really like this, so just going to point it out. Anyway, that's pretty much all the little things in the Cypress web interface itself. Again, this is like really nice interface for debugging tests, I find at least. Any questions? Cool.
So I want to try to connect this with each of the capstones because the project for this weekend is twofold. I'd like all of you to create a Jest test for your capstone, and I'd like all of you to create a Cypress test for your capstone. How you would use Cypress, I think at this point you guys have a pretty good understanding of how to use Jest. If not, how to use Jest for your capstone, or how you would use it for your capstone. If you don't, please ask me questions, and I'd be more than happy to help you find something to test in your capstone. But with Cypress, what I'm hoping that you'll do with your capstone is you'll use it to demonstrate some of the functionality of your capstone. So if you're selling things on your capstone, using it to add things to your cart, or using it to click through the different pages that are in your that's in your website. This is a pretty trivial example. I was hoping that we wouldn't run out of time. We've still got 30 minutes. I was hoping to show you guys what this would look like on the web store that you guys were doing for the Jest homework, where it has all the cards and that. And we can jump into that too. But I just want to take a quick pause here because I think. Oh yeah, we have a 10 minute. Yeah, we're gonna have a 10-minute break here in a second. But I just want to pause really quick and just get a 1 to 3. 1 being I have no idea what you're doing, Nathan. Pump the brakes. 2 being I could see myself being able to use this in my capstone, but I would probably need some help. And 3, I could just write a Cypress test right now for my capstone if I wanted to. So on a scale of 1 to 3, if you guys could throw that in the chat, just so I know where everyone's at. I'm hoping Cypress is a little bit easier to understand than Jest, just because it's a physical browser. It's there. It can click on the things in your app, your capstone. Yeah, Jest is a little bit more difficult because you're working at a super low level. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and be back in at 8:10.
Nathan, so for the homework, are you gonna specify how many steps we have to have? You know what I mean for the test? Because I was thinking
Yeah.
like I already know what I could do for the Cypress, but what I would want to do is not wired yet. So I'm just wondering if I'll fall short trying to do that.
I'm not going to tell you how many steps to put in.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, one step would be to just load your website and click through a couple of pages.
Okay.
With Cypress, you can click on links. You can navigate through your website. That would be a great test.
Cool.
To use Cypress for.
So, thing Jahil mentioned that Cypress needs to work, and it's important. He doesn't think he needs to use it. I have kind of an interesting thing to maybe be worth elaborating on. Is it a better strategy to maybe use Jest or use Cypress only, or like is it good to use them together, or like how in a real application, how would you use these things?
Are you asking me or are you asking you?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Are you asking me or?
Oh, sorry. I'm asking you, Nathan. I want to hear your take on that. I have a take, but.
So I think for the capstone, Jest fits in where maybe you have a tricky function that's incredibly important. So I wouldn't necessarily use Jest for unimportant things, like just to use Jest, but I would use Jest in your capstone if you have a tricky function, or if you have something that isn't super straightforward. For Cypress, I think Cypress works really well with your capstone, because you would be able to stand up your capstone and have a robot go through it and prove different parts of your capstone actually work, whether it's navigating to the e-commerce side and adding some things to a cart, or I haven't seen any of the other capstones, whether it's navigating to like the bio information and the contact information. Maybe it has like a submit form for sending in your information and having someone get back to you. That's where I would see Cypress being very valuable. Who has a capstone? Go ahead.
I was going to say, can I take a crack at answering that too?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, so I will say, and this is, I also want to preface all this by saying, like, this is a question every developer feels differently on what they should test, how they should test it. If you ask 100 developers, you're going to get 100 different answers, which is kind of why I wanted Nathan to answer it, and I wanted to answer it, so you kind of see our different perspectives. But also, Nathan and I used to work on the same team of Density, so we kind of have grown some of our perspectives together too. So like, keep that in mind too. My thought is for front-end testing, I really, really like Cypress a lot. I find it really helpful to be able to test an entire workflow end to end. So effectively, a user clicking on it and a certain thing the user sees is correct. However, I still see a place for Jest. The place I see for Jest, similar to kind of what Nathan's saying, is individual pieces that are more complicated. An example, I was writing an application at work recently, maybe like a year ago. And something I had to do was there was this function that took a bunch of inputs and returned like a bunch of times when a thing should happen. And this was a really complicated function. It did some crazy things with time zones. It did some stuff that it was not easy to understand. So what I did is I wrote a bunch of Jest tests for it. I poked and prodded it from a bunch of angles because I wanted to make sure that that function on its own worked. Because if that function broke, some Cypress tests up higher might break too. But if they don't really know what caused them to, Cypress is testing the whole thing, like the top to the bottom, from the user interaction all the way through all the functions, through like the whole entire application. And that's a thick enough layer of code where like it's good to know when that breaks, but like when it breaks, I won't know exactly what broke. So what I did in this case is I wrote Cypress tests for the whole workflow, and then I wrote Jest tests for the individual pieces that I was worried about, because I wanted to have close eyes on those pieces, because if they broke or they changed, I wanted to know if they broke. So that's kind of my approach. You've heard probably the words now thrown about a bit, unit tests and integration tests. My approach for front-end testing these days is I write a lot of integration tests with Cypress. And then anything that I'm particularly worried about, I write unit tests for in Jest. You can write integration tests in Jest too. So to be clear, integration test means a test that tests kind of from the top of the thing all the way to the bottom. So like a test where you kind of pretend to be the user maybe, and you work through all the code in the application, kind of testing it from end to end. What Nathan's been writing and today has been an integration test. And the unit tests are testing individual functions. So integration tests are like really wide in scope, and the unit tests are really narrow in scope. But the integration tests, because they're wide in scope, anything in that wide band could break, and it would break, which would be good, because like the integration test is going to fail and it's going to mean something broke. But because it's so wide, you don't really know what broke. So that's where the integration tests kind of fall down, because you'll know something broke, but you won't know what broke. And that's where I rely on the unit tests. So maybe that's kind of helpful, but totally willing to answer any more questions anyone has. One other thing, keep in mind you can't use Cypress on the server. So if you want to write tests on a server, you got to use Jest for that. And similarly to front ends, like you want to be able to do things where you're testing wide scoping bits. Like maybe you have an endpoint that does something really complicated. So you might want to call that API endpoint and like give it some specific parameters and make sure it returns some specific parameters. And like maybe make sure like some rows got written to a database, and do that entire workflow end to end. And then there might be a part of that API endpoint you're really worried about. You might want to unit test for that. So keep in mind, like you can write any sort of, you can write integration tests with Jest, with Cypress. You can't really write unit tests with Cypress. I mean, I guess you sort of could, but like it's just not really a tool meant for that job. But that's kind of why Jest is, I think, was more the focus of this module, because really Jest is, you can do all this stuff with Jest. It's just Cypress with some higher level power tools that make it nicer. So hopefully that was helpful.
I wish we hadn't gone on break, because I would have wished everybody else could hear that.
No,
It'll
that
be in the
did sound
video.
helpful. Can you
I
give
was here. I
example-
didn't realize we were on break.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're on
I
break
mean, I
for
was
like
learning
3 more
from-
minutes.
Yeah. Do you have a second, Nathan? I don't care who's here and what.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I'm auditing. That's my status now. And Capstone has kind of been not going anywhere right now. So I'm not at a point where I can implement what you want to do for the homework. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
I'm trying to do as much of the stuff as I can and keep moving forward and not give up on it. But I'll be learning when it's all over because I've got a lot of concepts and still shaky on. So just so you know.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So Latonia asked, can you please give some general examples on how we could run Jest tests for capstones? So I'm assuming that we're going to be talking about front-end testing for now, because we haven't really talked about back-end testing this module. So some examples might be, well, here's why this is a little bit of a tricky thing. So where unit tests are important is when you have some code, or you've got an operation that's complicated, and well, also this is all in my opinion. Like everyone has their own thoughts on tests. I got to preface all this stuff with that. But if operation, you can break that down into pieces. Testing one of the smaller pieces is a great place for a unit test with Jest. So an example of that might be, let's say you have like you make like a calendar or something like that, and you have a button on the calendar that like schedule a new event or like creates a new event, and like what it does, it looks at all the days in the calendar and it finds like the next free spot you have in your calendar and it puts a little block there. That might be something where you could start by just writing that as in the React. You can like unclick on the button when you click that add new event button. You could write your whole algorithm in that little on-click callback and do all your stuff and set whatever state you're going to do. You could do that, and that's a great place to start. But I tend to say, my opinion is when you start to get a testing thing, what's valuable if you can get code, complicated interaction code, extract that into a function and break that function out of your component. If you can do it that way, so take all that complicated interaction code and move it to a separate file and in a separate function, now it's separated and you can test it in isolation outside of the React context. So I suspect part of what people are going to have trouble with is figuring out more that part. Like how do you take the complicated interaction you're making, extract that into a function that's more generic that you can then call from your React component. And once you have it at that point, now you've got something really similar to what Nathan was talking about, where you've got a function that takes some parameters. You can just pass the parameters you want to it and see if it returns something that makes sense. So it's the part of that, like breaking that functionality out, is it's really dependent on the functionality itself. Like something like validating a password, like what Nathan did, like he kind of wrote that to start with in a separate function, but you could see, like, you could imagine that being done in the React component and being like, oh, this part's the part I want to test. I'm going to take that, I'm going to move it into a separate file, into a separate function, I'm going to call that function. And basically pass in whatever I need into that function to compute whether the password's valid and return out a Boolean or a string or whatever to indicate whether it's valid or not. But what's hard there is I can't just say like, everyone should just do X, because it's not that simple. You have to make the call on like what's the part of your application you're worried about. Like if you were to let your application, deploy your application and let it sit somewhere, what's the part you're like most concerned about it breaking? Like the part that you're concerned isn't going to work right, or concerned there's going to be bugs. And I would say if you can find that spot, like an individual little bit of code that you're like, I'm not really all that sure about this code, that's a great thing to unit test. Is that helpful?
Also, if you guys come to the office hours, I'll be more than happy to brainstorm with you on your capstone where a Jest test would fit in. Because like Ryan's pointing out, it does take some skill to tease out a function and compartmentalize it enough to effectively test.
And what you're probably also going to run into is a lot of your functions have things that like do asynchronous operations, like making requests to servers and stuff like that. Things that it's not just as simple as like you give the function parameters and it returns a thing. And that's really where things like mocking come in and why that's kind of important, because it's effectively a way where you can simulate that server call so your function no longer gets a dependency on the external service. And it's effectively all self-contained and you can test it assuming the server is working properly. So mocking sort of lets you test a function that may not be at the lowest level of all your logic by simulating everything below it as just like if you've got functions you're calling, just simulating their values. So effectively you're pretending all that stuff below is working as you expect. It's kind of it's a little advanced, but like it gets to be kind of important as you start to test more advanced functions. And mocking can be talked about in the office hours probably too.
We're going to do a lot of talking for office hours.
I know
Okay,
you
I
pulled
wanted
that assignment related to mocking, so it's not part of our curriculum right now or required, but I would love to take a stab at it at some point. Could it get thrown somewhere where I can access it?
It's still up in the careers and code base. So if you go and look in the
Okay,
homework,
it's not in classroom. Gotcha.
not in classroom though,
Right. Yeah, classroom is kind of gonna not like it if people aren't doing it. So, all right, thank you.
So we've got 15 minutes and I'm not going to go a minute over. We have two options here. We can either just do some more talking, answering general questions. I can try to come up with stuff on the spot, or I can drive really quick and show you what Cypress testing would look like on the web store, the homework that you guys have been working on. So let's just make general questions the first one, and Nathan driving really quick on the web store the second one. Meaning drive, we don't have enough time for all of you to follow along on your computer, so I'm going to do most of the driving. I'm going to do most of the coding.
No. I meant go ahead and drive.
Okay.
And that was my vote.
Road trip. Okay. All right, this is going to be fun. I'm going to do my best to try to slam this out as, not as quick as possible, but this is going to be awesome. Okay, here we go. So the web store, there is, if you are in day 4 and you want to follow along and you think you can hang with me and go as fast as I do, then by all means join along with me and go into day 4 Cypress, Nathan's web store, aka Nathan's attempt at a capstone. Okay, so remember, when we're developing Cypress tests, we need to have 2 terminals, one that does npm start and another one that launches Cypress. Now, I have not installed Cypress in this project yet. So remember to do your npm I save dev Cypress. So we're going to install Cypress. For your capstones, don't forget, you're going to need to install Cypress for the first time there as well. Then I'm actually going to get a third terminal because I'm going to open up this in my editor. Wow. Node modules is, can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm lagging.
The text is humongous too. It's usually the other way around. Technology.
Oh, I'm almost out of power. That's why. Throttled. Juice.
Crashed his car in 30 seconds, exactly.
Yeah, I'm lagging because my MacBook is running low on power. I'm gonna try to drop some stuff really quick. Oh man. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Where are you? Sorry, had to drop some stuff. I'm on 4% and my Mac is struggling to keep up. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay.
Yep.
All right, we got Cypress installed. I'm down to one monitor. Here we go. Cypress installed. Once we have Cypress installed, we open it using node modules.bin Cypress open. Ryan, I can't see a thing, so just let me know.
Yep.
So these are our tests. We should have a Cypress folder added here in a second once we open this for the first time. There we go. We've got a Cypress folder. So this should pop up in your capstones when you install Cypress. I'm going to, again, delete those two and create a app.spec.js. All right. So we've got our app.spec.js. Let's take a look at the front end really quick. So here's the web store. If we add some stuff into the cart and we hit calculate total, it's going to say the total. I don't have the sales tax in mind, so this is just adding the items in the cart together. So how could we test this with Cypress? Well, we could do exactly what I just did. Come in here, find the cards, click on the buttons, punch the calculate total button. So let's make Cypress do that. So recall when we're writing our Cypress test, we can choose to optionally start with a describe block. And I'm going to say this is Nathan's web store. It should add some items to the cart. Okay, so now we're ready. We're going to start adding some items into our cart. So the first thing we tell the robot to do is to go and visit our application. So that's at localhost 3000. Second thing we do is we tell it to go and click on some of these items. Now, there's a whole lot of buttons on this page. So how are we going to find the Lenovo power adapter to click on it? Well, the easiest way to do that is to use sci.contains, because it will just go scan the web page for the word Lenovo power adapter. So it will find this. But then once we find this, we're not telling the robot to click on Lenovo power adapter. We want the robot to click on the button, add to cart. So in order to get the robot to go from the words Lenovo power adapter over to the add to cart button, we need to use a method that I haven't shown you guys before called .siblings. So if you use contains, if you use get, if you use anything to go and try to find something and then you call .siblings, you can make a search for other elements that are around what you just found. So we're going to go and find the words Lenovo power adapter. Then we're going to look at its siblings. This takes another selector. I'm just going to use button. So I'm going to go from the Lenovo power adapter to finding the nearest button to those words. Then I'm just going to click on it. So let's see what this does if we run it in Cypress. So the robot loaded up the web page. It found this, and then it found the add to cart. Now we can use this playground, this little tool, and we can change from the selector that we were using before to this one, but it's entirely up to you if you'd rather do that. This works just as well. So this is how I would click on one of those.
Bogus. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all
No,
positional and it's kind of gross. Okay, and I'll push all this code up. Okay, we got 7 minutes. Let's keep going. So let's click on a couple more cards. So in order to do that, I'm just going to copy this line where we clicked on that first card. I'm going to copy and paste that a couple times, and then I'm going to take I'm going to make it click the adapter. I'm going to make it click the smartwatch charger. Okay. So now it should have clicked on 3 items. So it's got 3 items in the cart. Let's make it click on the calculate total button. So we can do another contains the word calculate total in order to find it. I'm going to go into the actual app and I'm going to add a data sci tag. So here's the button right here. That's the button that you click in order to calculate the total. Let's add a data sci in order to find it. Let's call it calculate total. We're going to use this data sci attribute so the robot can find this button quickly. So we'll go back into our Cypress test and we'll say sci.get and we'll pass it a CSS selector for that. So it's the data sci equal to calculate total. Then we're going to click that. Okay, refresh. And I think I'm going to take Ryan's suggestion and let's slow this down real quick. Sci.wait. Let's give it a second between each step so you guys can see this actually happening in real time. Hit save. Okay, so it clicks on one, clicks on the second, clicks on the third, then it clicks on the calculate total. I'll rerun this one more time. Disable the auto scrolling. All right, so it's proven that it can go to the web store, it can add some stuff to the cart, and then it can hit the calculate total button. The only thing that we're missing is testing that the correct number appears. So the Lenovo power adapter is $10, the AC adapter is $14, the smartwatch charger is $4, so that's $28. So we can do a quick search for the text. Total is $28. And there we go. Jest found the text total is 28. So we've proven that we can add some items into the cart, punch the calculate total button, and it will spit out total is 28. So now that's locked in. We can go and we can play with Nathan's web store. We could refactor things. We can work on cleaning up the code. We could do all sorts of stuff. And we have these tests now to prove that the functionality for adding things to the cart and having it calculate the total, we have that locked in. Okay, I'm gonna stop. We've got 3 minutes left. I just blazed through that. Questions? I will post this. Also, take a look at the slides that are in the careers and code base. Let me share my screen one last time. Show you. So, and in addition to some links that you can check out that Cypress has, I do have a couple examples of the different commands. So sci.visit, sci.get. I have an example of hitting the enter key. That's the syntax for telling the robot to type after they've typed something in, hitting enter. And then I've got this massive cheat sheet of a bunch of different examples of calling the robot to do different things. Yeah.
One other
All right,
thing,
that's it.
Cypress documentation is absolutely amazing. So if you ever
It
have any
rocks.
questions with Cypress, if you just look up Cypress space whatever you want, like they will have an answer for you. Like it's
Or a Stack Overflow where somebody was trying to do the exact same thing.
yeah, it's like shocking how good it is.
This may be a silly question. This is Latonia, but how would you, can you do a Cypress test on something you've integrated into your page? Like I've added Gumroad to my page, and so I can see Cypress going in and like checking the buy now, but could you check beyond that? Or is that a silly question?
If it's embedded in your page, so it's mounted inside the browser, if it's rendered in your website, you can test it with Cypress.
But when you say that, it has to be embedded, not overlay.
They're the same. So it appears
Okay.
as overlay in the browser, but it's still running inside your website. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So the homework tonight is really straightforward. I want you to install Cypress into your capstone. And I want you to use Cypress to visit your capstone. I want you to send me a screenshot of your app inside of the Cypress test platform. There's a couple other little small things. I'll put that up on the Google Classroom here in like 15 minutes after I get done typing it out. But your first goal for the homework tonight is to just go to your capstone and install Cypress. Follow the instructions that we went through today. Get Cypress launched, have both of your terminals there, one that's serving your JavaScript, one that's running Cypress, and then just take a quick screenshot when you've got one test where the robot goes and visits your website. Send me a screenshot of that. Here in a second after I make the homework. Okay, we're at 6:30. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send them my way or Ryan's way, because he's
time sneak through.
Sorry.
You let your mountain time sneak through.
Oh shoot, do we have more time?
No,
it is 8:30 for you guys.
You said 6:30.
By the way, I'm not where you guys are. We're going over. Everyone, feel free to drop. You will get I will send you the stuff in Google Classroom, send you links, all that stuff. Have a great night. And I guess I'll see you guys for office hours. Good luck with your career stuff tomorrow. I'll see you guys on Saturday at 10. That was so much fun. Like Cypress under a gun.